Hello, I'm Patricia Henderson with Senior Connection Center, and this is your weekly connection. Walking, bicycling, driving. Those are modes of transportation that many of us use, either for exercise or to get where we need to go. But how can we be safe walking, bicycling, or driving? Here today to talk about those things and more are Marcus Vinson, Deputy State Coordinator for the state of Florida in the AARP Driver Safety Program, and Theresa Chestnut, Community Traffic Safety Program Coordinator for the Florida Department of Transportation District 1. Thank you both for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Theresa, will you tell us a little bit more about the Department of Transportation's Safe Mobility for Life program?
Yes, so the Safe Mobility for Life is a coalition of several organizations with an invested interest in the safety, access, and mobility of Florida's aging road users working together to help keep you safe and mobile. So the Florida Department of Transportation's Safe Mobility for Life program partnered with the Pepper Institute on Aging and Public Policy, and that's located at the Florida State University, to form a diverse statewide coalition. And our goal is to reduce the number of fatalities and serious injuries and crashes among Florida's aging road users, while also helping them maintain safe mobility and community connections. And as Florida's older adult population grows, it's important to provide information and resources that will help all of us stay connected to our community and maintain an active lifestyle so that as we age, we're able to remain safe and mobile for life.
And AARP is a member of that coalition, I understand.
That is correct.
Yes.
Many people are walking more these days. And walking is a wonderful way to get exercise, to reduce stress, or just to get outside. But it's important to walk safely. What are some ways that we can be safe walkers, especially older adults? For example, which way should you walk, facing traffic or against traffic?
Those are good questions. So as you mentioned, walking can provide an enjoyable way to improve your health, spend quality time with others, stay involved in the community, save money, and even improve the environment. And in many cases, it can also be used as a simple low-cost form of transportation. So it's important to focus on safety regardless of why you're choosing to walk. To be proactive, you should plan and prepare for your trip by mapping out a comfortable route. Bring items needed such as water and an umbrella if you choose. We are in Florida, so we know the weather is always unpredictable. And most importantly, wear visible clothing. If you have anything reflective, that's always good too. We also encourage walkers to practice defensive walking skills, which involve identifying situations that carry higher risk of being involved in a crash and taking steps to control these situations as much as possible. So you asked Patricia about which way walkers should walk on the roadway. So when it comes to walking along a roadway, the safest place, of course, is on a sidewalk, but we know that's not always available. So when there's no sidewalk available, you always want to walk on the left side of the road facing oncoming traffic. Again, you want to walk on the side facing oncoming traffic. And this allows you to see and react to drivers, another way that you can practice defensive walking. These tips and more information about laws, signals, and markings can be found in our new walking booklet, which is available for pre-order at FLDOT.tips/orderwalk. And we'll include that link at the end of this session also.
And that's a good point. Any of the phone numbers or websites that we mentioned today will be included at the end of the video for you. Now, one of the things that I do when I'm walking and a car comes, I wave at them. to make sure that they've seen me? How can drivers be proactive in making sure that drivers and walkers can share the roadway safely? Marcus?
Good question, Patricia. Thank you. We are certainly part of our driver safety classes focusing on people who are walkers, bicyclists, motorcyclists, and others who are out in the various neighborhoods. We realize that there's always a need for drivers to be aware of their surroundings, be aware of people who could be next to their vehicle, be aware of signage that may indicate walkers may be in the area, various traffic controls that also monitor both the driver and the walkers, right of way. Those are very important that we train and really encourage our drivers to really focus on those. Because we are in Florida, these incidents could occur both during the day and in the evenings because we have walkers who are out late in the afternoon. So having good vision through your windshield, having your proper lights on if necessary, having all your mirrors adjusted correctly so you can see clearly around your vehicle for pedestrians who may be out. And, or as I said, motorcyclists, bicyclists as well. There are rules of the road that most of us understand, but sometimes we may be obstructed by vegetation nearby, trees, and other issues that could block our vision. So we must be mindful of that and pay close attention when we do see people on the road who may be out for exercise, and we want to make sure that we have follow the rules of the road, give them the clearance that they need. Particularly making right-hand turns is also very important. One of those good driving tips we always encourage our drivers to focus on when they see people out and about walking or bicycling.
That's good information, good advice. Now, bicycling. Many more people are bicycling these days, and many people are bicycling who may not have ridden a bike in a while. So getting out for exercise is important, and many people are using bicycling as a mode of transportation as well. The rules are a little different for bicyclists than they are for walkers. So how can older adults be proactive in being safe when they're out bicycling for exercise or to get where they need to go? Theresa?
Okay. Well, first and foremost, I want to mention always wear a helmet. A lot of people think that they don't need a helmet if they ride on sidewalks or on a trail because there are no cars. But other situations could cause you to fall off your bike, which could include even a medical event or riding on wet pavement, swerving to avoid animals or pedestrians or other obstacles that are on your path. So in any of these cases, a helmet will protect your head. And studies have shown that wearing a helmet could prevent up to 85% of cycling deaths that are caused by head injuries. One good rule of thumb that we always share to practice are the ABC quick checks before each ride. A, do your tires have the proper air pressure? B, are your brakes working correctly? And C, is there any rust, looseness, or debris that may be caught in your chain? So you always want to check on those ABCs. And if you're riding along a roadway, you always want to travel the same direction as vehicular traffic. So this is the opposite of walking. Remember, you walk facing traffic, but with biking, you bike with traffic. And this is because as a bicyclist, you are required to obey the same rules of the road as vehicular traffic. So stopping at stop signs and using hand signals for turning movements, for example. Also, it's important to note that if you're riding at dusk, dawn, or during nighttime hours, you are required to be equipped with a white light on the front of your bicycle, and both a red reflector and a red light on the rear of your bicycle. And if you are in need of a bike light, feel free to contact me and I can assist you in obtaining a free bicycle light for your bike. And again, we have an abundance of bicycle safety tips and resources in our bicycling booklet that's available in the Resource Center, and we'll include that link as well.
Great information. Now, there are many more bike lanes on roads these days. And that's great so that people can share the road, whether they are biking or driving. But sometimes it feels a little close. So how can drivers be more aware and share that road safely with bikers who are in bike lanes? Marcus?
Good question, Patricia. And we stress that point that when there is areas where you have dedicated and clearly marked bicycle lanes, drivers should, not drift in those lanes. They should stay in their own traffic lane. But what if there's areas where there is no bike lanes that are indicated on the pavement? What should drivers do? Obviously, there are situations where the driver may be going faster than the bicyclist, in most cases anyway, and you need to understand the rules of the road about how to pass a bicyclist safely. And it may require the driver to cross the lane lines to make that pass successfully. But also we realize that bicyclists do have the right of way in situations where they are allowed to make left or right hand turns, and drivers should not assume that because they're in a vehicle that those rules are not applicable, because they are. Also, we do understand, and as Theresa mentioned, that bicycles, we hope, are well identified, and that we should not be, as drivers, driving too close to those bicyclists. We should give them the same clearance as we would for an automobile. And so it's very important that drivers be aware that there could be bicyclists, there could be more than one bicyclist. We've seen a lot of cases where we have groups of bicyclists together in the state. So be mindful of that. Always be checking your mirrors, both side and front, to make sure you have adequate clearance, that you're not crouching over in the bicycle lane, and that you're obeying all the laws as far as right of way for bicyclists when you're sharing the road with them.
Well, one of the things that I keep hearing is everyone should be aware, whether you are a walker, a biker, or a driver, that you should be aware of your surroundings and be safe. Now, Marcus, you mentioned a couple of times the driver safety classes that AARP has. Can you tell us a little bit more about those classes?
Yes, they are, AARP in general has the largest, and I believe probably the first driver refresher course in the United States. And I do mean in every state in the United States, we have AARP driver safety classes. These classes are designed to help primarily our drivers, who are mostly seniors, to be safer drivers, to provide them tips and information how to maneuver through traffic, how to drive safely under various conditions, how to be knowledgeable of various features in your own vehicle, as well as yourself. As we get older, we do change, and therefore it's very important that we take refresher courses sometimes to be aware of those changes that occur to ourselves, to the roads, and to our vehicles, and to laws in various states that sometimes do vary. We have new environments now with roundabouts and traffic circles, have new dedicated lanes in certain cities. They're always changing some of those aspects that we need to stay on top of it. Vehicles are changing, and some new gadgets are coming on today's cars that many of our older drivers may not be aware of those. And we want to help them become comfortable with those features on their vehicles and how they can be better used for safety, to be a safer driver. But we are changing as we get older. Things could be impacted by our vision, our hearing, our reaction time. And we want to acknowledge those changes and realize how can we still drive safely, adapt to our own physical conditions that may change due to medication, other things that we need to be on top of, and then we can still remain safer drivers in today's road. So driver safety program is a in-classroom or online program that you can take to get some of these driving tips to remain a safer driver for as long as possible. And we do put those courses on with volunteers. In Florida, they are 6-hour classes. And they are, again, to provide individuals or couples, both to attend our classes to get that information. And luckily here in the state of Florida, if you do attend one of our driver safety classes, either in person or online, you are eligible for a discount on your car insurance. So a lot of folks take our classes repeatedly to get the discount that's applicable for every 3 years they take our class. So it's a little incentive as well to stay on top of their driving, stay on top of the changes in themselves, the road, vehicles, and remains as safe drivers as long as possible.
So saving money is always a good incentive to get somebody to do something. Like the information sounds invaluable. Now, you mentioned that those classes are available online now.
Yes, they are. They are still a 6-hour course. We take it online at home at your discretion. It's not a sit still for 6 hours and watch a video. No, they are in modules that you can take at various times, so long as you're completed in a certain time frame. But you can stop, replay, view the information. A little fun quiz to ensure that you've picked up the key points that were provided during the moderator speaking online. And we find a lot of our seniors, particularly during this certain time frame we're all going through right now with COVID, that taking it home and online is probably the best for them right now. And they can take it and feel comfortable to get the same information they do from a live class, but it's all online and it's just as easy to pick up the good safe driving tips.
And now is a good time for a lot of people to take that class because many of us are driving less or went through a period of time where we didn't drive much at all. And now we're getting back out on the road, and a refresher course would be a good idea for many people. And so I encourage you to consider taking one of those refresher classes, and we will have that information at the end of the video for everyone. Now, you mentioned tech in cars. And if somebody buys a new car these days, it is going to be very different than the car they had several years ago.
Yes, that is very, very true.
Can you tell us a little bit more about those classes that help with that, or videos or information that's available?
Yeah, in several different avenues. We have found that when we do our classes, we're always talking to people who've been driving for many, many years, but today's cars and trucks are so high tech that if you go out to buy a new car today, it's pretty, I guess, shattering with the new things that go in today's cars, how these bells and whistles work and what happens automatically, I need to know. So our classes provide some of the information in driver safety classes themselves, but we also came with a new program called Smart Driver Tech. And Smart Driver Tech is a 90-minute course you can take either online or live. We go through 12 of the newest safety features in today's cars, everything from automatic driving, autonomous cars, we talk about that. We talk about various lighting features, various braking and stopping features, all these cameras and sensors on today's cars, how they work, which ones are automatic, and how you can adjust those for your safety. And we find that this is something that many shoppers who are about to buy a new car, as well as those who have bought a new car, find invaluable to really understand how these safety features work, and I can best use them in my own vehicle, either what I'm driving now, or the one I'm going to rent, or the one I plan to buy. So these are very, very, I think, informative courses, again, done with either volunteer moderators or online. They are free of charge, so you can take these little micro learning sessions and really pick up some good tips about these new bells and whistles on today's cars. And I'll provide a link later on today's session where you can go and view these little bitty micro learning sessions at home, online, anytime you like. So Smart Driver Tech is a formal 90-minute class. These micro learnings that we can share with you on our website are available anytime that anyone can view and learn about some of these new features on today's cars.
I went on the website this morning and watched one of the little mini videos, and it was very interesting. And I encourage people to find out about the technology that is part of your car now. It's there to help you, and it can help you, but only if you know how to use it.
Very true.
One thing that we all know is that aging may impact one's ability to drive. And I say may impact the ability to drive because everyone ages differently. But there are some things to consider as one ages, as to whether one is still a safe driver and whether one should consider giving up their license. Theresa, how are some ways that aging may impact driving?
Yes, so as you mentioned, Patricia, aging definitely impacts specific functions that are important for driving, and how soon this happens and to what degree does vary from person to person. Functional decline related to aging does not affect all drivers at the same time or in the same way. So that's why there's not one universal age where someone should stop driving. And I always give an example of my own personal family. For example, my grandparents, my grandmother stopped driving in her late 70s, early 80s, where my grandfather didn't stop driving until he was in his 90s. And my mother is starting to transition into not driving as well. And she started, you know, basically in the beginning, just like right now, she just doesn't drive at night because that kind of leads into my next thing. The natural age-related changes that are affected are our vision, reaction time, our physical strength, flexibility, and memory, all of which are skills that are needed to drive. So like my mother, her vision has been affected and she chooses not to drive at night. It's important to make note of the changes that impact your safe driving ability and start planning for a well-rounded transportation future. It's never too early to start trying out new modes of transportation, such as biking and walking that we discussed earlier, and also riding public transit. By building your transportation plan and practicing it, you can retain your independence beyond the driver's seat. And starting now, I always encourage others to maybe get a group of friends and family together and go to lunch by using a different mode of transportation, because this will allow you an opportunity now to get familiar and feel a little bit more comfortable about using other modes of transportation. So to dive in a little deeper on the natural age-related changes that affect our driving, as I mentioned, vision, cognition, and physical abilities, many don't realize that 90% of the information needed to stay safe on the road comes from your vision. So the impact that that has on driving, declines in vision can impact your ability to read signs, see roadway markings, and also navigate that glare. So what can you do? Well, we always encourage you to visit your eye doctor on an annual basis because they may need to prescribe or adjust corrective eyewear, such as your glasses. The next is the cognition and the impact that that has on driving, delayed reactions, trouble adjusting to traffic conditions, or slower responses to signals, all point to potential change or decline. So you can read and do puzzles like crosswords or even play games on an iPad. All those are activities that can exercise the brain and keep it sharp. And last, the physical ability. Aging can lead to loss in muscle or bone strength and a potential loss in your ability to control your vehicle. It could be something simple as being able to push the accelerator or the brake in a safe manner, or transition your neck if you're trying to see in that blind spot. So what you can do are simple range of motion exercises like head tilts to ease your neck pain, or wrist and finger bends to stretch out your hands.
Good information and good suggestions, not just for older adults, but for everyone, just to make sure that they are good drivers and are keeping themselves fit for driving. Marcus, are these changes covered in those driving safety classes?
Absolutely, and Theresa, I thank you. You hit on all the points that we bring up in our driver safety classes as well. As people age, we all change, and things, as Theresa mentioned, are absolutely covered in our class. In addition, we talk about behaviors that will sometimes change as we get older. Maybe more concerned about people driving too fast around us, because as we get a little older, we don't be as tempted to drive as quick as some of the other drivers around us, and that can make us very uncomfortable when we're driving. We get agitated maybe a little more easier because of people who are not following the laws or the rules of the road, and may tend to make us get distracted and as well as angry. Maybe we're not following doctor's advice. Maybe the doctor has told us to cut back on our driving, and maybe we haven't really been following his or her recommendation about driving. So the issues that we cover in our class are recommendations. We surely have no information that says at a certain age you should stop driving. No, that's not true. Everybody's going to be at a different point based on a lot of factors. There may be cases where people who have not driven for a while who return to driving have difficulties. We found some cases where a spouse, a loved one has passed away, and now the other person becomes a primary driver who hasn't been driving for a long time. The roads have changed, driving has changed. They're a little uncomfortable getting back out there on the road right away. So we will talk with people about those life issues that could impact you if you've been out for illness for an extended period of time. Maybe you've been, again, your primary driver, a loved one of yours who was the primary driver is no longer there. Now it's more on your responsibility. So those things do come up. Or we also have situations where friends, family members have observed our drivers and are concerned about their driving behavior as they age. And it could be because of medical issues or those that also Theresa mentioned that could have begun now with a person. And it's always a good opportunity to do a refresher, to reassess yourself. And in our class, we do both a self-analysis of how you feel about your own driving, has it deteriorated at all, and what you can do to kind of get it back in shape. Those that Theresa mentioned as far as exercising, absolutely. Staying healthy, following a good exercise program, absolutely. So some things you can do to extend your driving safely, but it takes a lot of sometimes a little extra motivation and a little extra acknowledgement of the fact that as we get older, things will change and our environment will change around us. So we must stay on top of both of those ourselves and being aware of our own maybe changes as we got older.
I recall very clearly the day I took my father to the Department of Motor Vehicles so that he could turn in his license and
Yes.
get an ID card. It was a very difficult day. Driving is so connected to independence. Sometimes our loved ones may not be willing to admit that they need to stop driving. How does someone begin that conversation with a loved one?
In our case, at AARP, we have a program called We Need to Talk. And it's really designed for the families of drivers who may have gotten to a point where their driving is not driving as well, and now that they're maybe a little bit older. And that is a tough conversation because today's world, driving does kind of identify your independence. And I can imagine having taken your driver's license away from your father in this case was very, very difficult. But we have options now. Theresa has mentioned some, and there's others that we also cover in our class about walking and driving and the use of public transportation. The use of other means to get around, including systems like Uber and Lyft, which weren't around for many of us when we were younger. They're now available for people who need to get places. But you also find a lot of communities that have golf carts as a way for members to get around. The companies are moving their businesses closer to senior communities, so they're closer. Would only require people to walk maybe a little more than they maybe did in the past. But our program called We Need to Talk, I mentioned at the beginning here, is a session that's designed to help families talk with a loved one about maybe reducing their driving. Maybe not giving up on it entirely, but maybe reducing it for starters. Maybe only driving during the daylight hours, and you're only driving on safe roads with a lower speed limit, so they don't have to drive as fast like you would on the interstate. To maybe ensure that the people are following their doctor's advice in terms of taking their medication on time, that they're getting their eyes and vision checked regularly, and their hearing. We have a lot of people who have hearing issues, and they don't realize how important it is to be able to hear well while you're driving. Mm-hmm. And it may be turning off the radio and to maybe lower the window a little bit sometimes to hear traffic around you if you have trouble with hearing. So, and also just hear your own vehicle sometimes to know there may be a problem in your vehicle. So these are things we cover in our session called We Need to Talk to help families have a conversation with their loved one about reducing their driving, changing their driving. It's a conversation that's a tough one until you've been there. And sometimes the best person to talk with a loved one is someone who has given up their driving. And to realize that I can still get around as well. They share stories of how well they can use other means of transportation. And that will help sometimes people who may be reluctant to give up their keys feel a little more better about it because they know of other people who've done that and they get along just fine. As a matter of fact, we discussed in our class about the cost savings of not owning a car, that the savings of fuel, insurance costs, maintenance, things like that. So we have shown some people you can save a lot of money if you don't own a car, and particularly if you don't use it that often anyway. So we discuss all this, the business factors, if you will, the financial factors of giving up, stopping driving to help people make that decision to maybe find other ways to get around with groups, colleagues, folks in their neighborhood, to make that safer driving for everybody and to not require everyone to be driving a vehicle.
Good information. Theresa, final thoughts for us?
We only have scratched the surface on all of our resources. SafeMobilityFlorida.com, and we'll include that link also, but it provides an access to many educational materials and web pages that support lifelong mobility independence. And I encourage everyone to visit our resource center where you can order free print materials and also even download digital versions now. Our Florida's Guide to Safe Mobility for Life, it includes interactive worksheets to help you develop your transportation plan, which can be found in the guide and also downloaded individually on the guide page. And just as Marcus mentioned, we also have different worksheets that can show you the savings that you will have with the different modes of transportation.
Great. Marcus, final thoughts for us?
Well, thank you. AARP's driver safety program, I'll speak to that. It's been around for over 30 years, and we have found that people who take our classes walk away with at least one idea of changing their behavior to make them safer drivers. And so we feel very good about that. No one seems to take our class and feels wasted their time. You always pick up at least one good tip. We find people take our classes every 3 years just to kind of stay on top of their knowledge about safe driving, which we certainly applaud. I think driving safely in today's world will be a challenge for many people as technology is changing, road conditions are changing, and I think to stay on top of that, our kind of courses we think really help people to remain aware of themselves and roads and vehicles, and that's what we're all about, having people drive safely for as long as possible.
Great information. Thank you both for being here today and providing such great information and resources to help us all be safer, whether we are walking, bicycling, or driving. I'm Patricia Henderson, and this is your Weekly Connection.